Okay, so everybody kind of has this experience, right? You're driving down the highway and you realize that you haven't noticed where you've been for the last 30 minutes. You wake up and you're like, whoa, where was I? Now, you know that you were thinking because you haven't driven off the side of the road, but your brain is not really engaged at that point, right? Like you're having a different experience. I think that most people go through their work lives like this, kind of like zombies. They go to work and they don't really pay attention to what they're doing. They're not really aware of what's happening around them or what processes and ideas they're using in order to do their work. Now, there's another way that we think about work, and we call it the monkey mind. And monkey mind is this thing that you have at work where your brain is just greedy. It wants to have new experiences, novel ideas. It's constantly grasping at the next thing that flashes by. And one of the real problems with this is that most people in the United States now are involved in a creative class. And the creative class is involved in knowledge work, and what they use to do their work, unlike what we used in the Industrial Revolution, is their minds. And if their minds are constantly full of this non-attention to what they're doing, and this kind of monkey mentality where they're constantly grasping at the next little flashing icon, the next piece of information that flies by their screen, the next thing. And not only that, but because of the way that our minds work, we enjoy this sensation. We enjoy the monkey mind. And in fact, we have a whole mythology that we've built up around it that's called the mythology of productivity. Most people, if you walk up to them nowadays and ask them, how are you doing? They might say something like, I'm really busy. And they think of this as a good thing. They think of this as a badge of honor, that they're busy and it proves how important they are. So I'm worried about how we think differently about knowledge work and how we might change the way we think about knowledge work. And one of the problems we have is that most management theory, the way that we think about managing work, comes from this man. His name's Taylor. And he separated mind and hand. He separated the ideas of management and doing. And when he did this, he made it really easy to do certain types of things. He separated labor so that people could make objects really well. Now, one of the interesting things about making objects is those objects are always in front of you for inspection by yourself and by the people who are managing the work that you're doing. So anytime someone can come by and determine whether or not you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and help you do that thing better. Now, knowledge work isn't really like that. And one of the problems with knowledge work is that if we apply Taylor's scientific methodology to knowledge work, this is what it tells us we need to tell people to do. You just need to focus better. You're not a good worker because you're not focused. And if we can't get you to focus, what we're going to do is watch over your shoulder all the time to try to figure out what you're doing and try to constantly monitor you and improve your work that way. Of course, it's impossible to see what's happening inside someone else's mind, and knowledge work requires thinking. So I like Bertrand Russell's idea of how we might move forward into a more mindful way of working. And what he says is that, in fact, self-discipline needs to be from the internal, the way that you think about your own work, and that is not an external or authoritative way of looking. Now, this man's name is escaping right this second, but Andy Clark has a different theory about this separation of mind and hand, and he actually says that the way our bodies and our minds work together is really important, and in fact, intelligence is embedded and embodied in our environment. And so the embedded and embodied environment that is very commonly understood is this. When you do math, can you do it all in your head, or do you use paper to externalize and extend your mental capacity? So he calls this concept scaffolding. I'd like to introduce you a 3-week process to do scaffolding with yourself. The first thing to do when you get home and go to work tomorrow is write down on a sticky what you're doing. The first thing in the morning, write down whatever it is you're doing. Then, every time you get distracted and you can't remember what you're doing, just look at the sticky and go, am I doing that? And if you're not, do that. The second thing to do after doing that for a week is to time box. So write it down on a sticky and do it for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, it's very important because we know that the mind and the body are now, we're trying to integrate them and create a physical, mental chain. Every 30 minutes, get up and move around, because your mental capacity is directly linked to the amount of oxygen in your blood and your posture. So you need to move around. So write it down, time box it, move around, and then I want you to do another thing. We call this personal Kanban, and it's really simple. Instead of just writing it down on one column, write down at the beginning of the morning the 3 or 4 things that you'd like to get done for the day. As you start a thing, move it into the doing column. And when you complete it, move it into the reflect column. And because we know that you can't do more work than you're capable of doing, this visualization of working will allow you to figure out exactly how many things you can do at the same time. Now, at the end of the day, go through the 3 or 4 things that you finished for the day and create a journal. Write down what you did for the day. Get an understanding of what you're capable of doing in one day, and you'll have a better understanding of your work. Now, if you do this, you will have started a very simple, mindful way of working. You will set some proximal goals, things that are near and easy to achieve, hopefully within a day. You will work from a centered place. You'll know what you're doing and have a place to return to when you get distracted. And finally, at the end of the day, you'll reflect on what you've achieved, which allows you to have a sense of completion. If you do all these things, I think, because this is the way that I work, you will achieve a sense of flow, a sense of mindfulness about your work and how you go about your work that allows you to feel complete and more successful at work and less zombie-like and less monkey. Thank you.